Hi everyone. Okay, so it's been a while since I made a video. I don't know how long it's been. It's been 1 month. So I've been reading this book from Lee Kuan Yew, One Man's View of the World. So it's a Singaporean Prime Minister. So I respect him very much. This is not the first book I've read. I think I've read two or three of his books already. I think it's really fantastic. Talks a lot about the country, right? Which can trigger some questions, right? Like, why do I need to read a book about countries when I never really intend to run one and when I'm a business person, right? And I think a lot of the way he thinks, the framework of thinking is very interesting because, well, he runs Singapore, but if you notice, more than 60 to 70% of his book is not about Singapore, right? So that really pops up a lot of questions in your mind. How can it be that you are running Singapore and more than 70% of the questions are not about Singapore? So the same way I want to bring that idea over to business and say that actually a lot of business decisions that we make are more than 70% dependent on the outside forces. And I think that's how we kind of ran the company since the start of this year 2017. And I think that has been really helpful for the growth of the company, right? We make a lot of better decisions internally because of this 70% of focus on outside knowledge. But outside to us in the business would not be another country, right? It could be different companies, it could be different countries, right? And I want to also share a little bit about how our decisions were kind of affected by this external thinking. Okay, so for one part of it would be, well, the choice of focusing our operations on the United States of America, right? So I think that's pretty obvious. I think everyone focuses on USA because it's big, because it's leading. So that's pretty obvious. Okay, but another more, want talk about two other decisions, which is the decision to kind of place some kind of focus in Singapore, right? Well, I happen to come from that country. I'm a Singaporean. And I think we would probably want to put quite a bit of focus into Singapore, which can be funny because like Singapore is so small, and we don't expect to make a lot of money from Singapore. So why the focus on Singapore? Because of the policies inside Singapore, the way they support things, how much the government kind of helps you to enter all other markets. Singapore is not delusional. They are aware that they are not the most profitable market around, right? So they attract you not by telling you how great Singapore is, but by providing support so that if you are set up in Singapore, there are a lot of benefits, don't compare to America, right? Compared to many other neighboring nations, okay, that we can help you to enter America, we can help you to enter Canada, we can help you to enter all many different countries because they make the framework that way, right? So that's something that you may want to consider because you are going to have a lot less problems in Singapore and everything that you do there is going to be a lot more scalable. But of course, for a start, it is smaller than the United States of America. And I think they touch a lot on China, right? So and of course, if you take a look at all the things happening around Uber, Google, they all exit China, right? So we should know that China is not ready to give up power, definitely not in the next 100 years for as long as we are alive, right? So you should definitely not be thinking of owning a company in China. It is never going to work for you unless you have already owned everything else around the world. Then we'll talk about that, which is unlikely to happen for any one of us, okay? But well, China has a rising market, right? So you might be interested to sell to China because there's a lot of money that's coming in, right? But never ever set up a company in China, right? And of course, the laws in China is just non-existent, okay? And I think knowledge of all the different countries also kind of paints this thing called house rules, right? Every country is like a different home, right? US is a different home, Singapore is a different home, and the rules at your home follows what you like, and the rules at my home follow what I like, and is not always rational. And whatever you choose to enforce at your home can be totally different from what I want in my home. So breaking the rules at your home may have absolutely nothing to do with what I think about that same wrong action in my home, right? So it helps a lot, right? And for those people who are closer to us will know what we mean, right? So we are actually involved in this situation right now where certain rules in someone else's home is giving us some problems, but fortunately we are not at his home, so we are not affected. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about why I think there's a need to read such books, right? So of course this is Experienced Statesman and many other books like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, because I think, you know, I'm pretty young, I'm 28. Even if I have 10 years of working experience, uh, I think I lack competency and I lack experience compared to many people out there. I believe that many of you guys watching this video probably have a lot more competency and experience than me. So how am I going to fight against the world when uh, I know so little, right? So I need to depend on external sources, people that are actually better than all of you out there, right? And to gather their knowledge and use them, right? So that's why I'm reading all these books, okay? And yeah, I think this knowledge affects the target countries that you want to be in, you know. You don't want to be in China, although you do want to sell to China, and you make your decisions on whether you want to enter a country based on their government and their policies, of course, right? The government makes the policies, right? So you notice that like Uber invested a lot of money into Singapore, even though it was very small. Even though okay, Uber made a choice to invest quite, I don't know, 100 million or 50 million or something like that into Singapore, even before Singapore started regulating the Uber, because Uber already knew what kind of regulations was going to happen in Singapore, which is that they are not going to kick out Uber because Uber is good for the people, right? But they are going to attempt to ensure its safety and ensure fairness, ensure something, right? And they will allow Uber to continue to operate. And this is not something that is special or new, right? Singapore has always been making decisions like this. So Uber had the confidence to go ahead and invest a lot of money in Singapore, which is exactly what we're going to do, right? We're going to invest money and time in Singapore. However, Uber didn't exactly put the same kind of money into Malaysia or Thailand, right? Which is actually so much bigger and just beside Singapore. Why? Because they also knew what they were going to do, right? Which is protectionist policies. So what Thailand did was they attempted to crack down on Uber. Same for Malaysia. They beat the drivers. I mean, the people beat the drivers, and the government kind of started to clamp down on them, right? And again, Uber already knew that. I mean, I think all of us already knew that, because this is not the first time they clamped down on a new technology, right? China takes it to the extreme, right? Kicking out almost everyone and Facebook and Google. So you should know that, you know, these are the countries that you don't really want to put a lot of money in, depending on the level of your company as well, right? So if you are small and you enter Malaysia, you're not going to get these problems. But if you are intending to really have some kind of revolutionary technology or some kind of really strong company, right, you know that Thailand and Malaysia laws are not in the favor of their own citizens, are not in the favor of business, right? So you definitely don't want to make a $10 million investment in Malaysia or Thailand. And if you do want to make a $10 million investment there, you better make sure that you already have invested 100 million in Singapore, right? Otherwise it's not going to make sense. So it kind of gives you a priority. So I can tell you what countries we're going to enter, right? We're going to go into USA. I mean, we're already there. We're going to test our market in Singapore, right, to develop our model, because we know that Singapore government is going to support us doing whatever they want to do, so that we are scaling to all countries. And we are going to enter the Canada, because I think the Canada has a pretty good prime minister, and their whole cabinet is pretty solid. So definitely a country we're entering. In fact, we have just entered again. Okay, United Kingdom, I'm not sure, I didn't really study. China, definitely not, but we may sell some there, right? But we're definitely not going to set up any kind of meaningful operations in China. We may visit, we may buy, but we're not going to get involved in any kind of things that put us under the government's rule. Okay, we are definitely not too interested in Europe, right? That's not to say that Europe is not a good country, or that they do not have great people, or they do not have great technologies, right? It's just that we don't want to get involved in their funny tussle. Even though we may get involved in one or two of their top countries, and even if we do, we are not going to accept euro dollars, right? Because euro dollar is their own funny mess with all their poor countries. So we're going to accept, United States dollars, or at least turn their euro into United States dollars before keeping it, right? Because euro is like their own baby. There's a problem with them because they and the poor cannot settle their shit. So you want to avoid holding that kind of currency, right? and we are interested in the developing nations who open up their market, like for example Vietnam, right? So there's still a lot of corruption going on in Vietnam, but I mean, if you talk about developing countries, there's always some kind of bullshit happening, right? But their government are relatively open compared to many other markets like Thailand and Malaysia, and they are growing. There's a lot of support going on there. So Vietnam is definitely one of the emerging countries we want to invest in, right? Rather than Thailand. I mean, if we do participate in Thailand, it's because we are here. You know, if we are not here, we're definitely not less interested in Thailand and more interested in Vietnam instead. And Philippines, well, we definitely have to watch what that president is doing, right? And I mean, definitely not one of our first choices, right? I don't think Uber invest a lot of money there. So I think you want to follow all these big companies, you know, wherever Facebook is putting their money, wherever Uber is expanding in what countries, those are kind of countries you want to take note. Yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching.